Stunt Pilot is the newest roller coaster at Silverwood Theme Park in Athol, Idaho, and in my opinion, it also happens to be the park's best coaster. The ride opened in 2021, and while at first it might look like one of the traditional RMC prototype Raptors, there are actually a few things that set it apart. Not only that, but this coaster was a long time coming for Silverwood and their relationship with RMC, and it also pays homage to some old stuff in Silverwood's history, so there's actually a little more here that meets the eye. We'll talk about all that and more in this review, and also ask the question, is this better than the original prototype Raptors, like Railblazer just down the coast at California's Great America? But first things first, let's get to the origins of Stunt Pilot. The first thing I want to address is Silverwood's relationship with Rocky Mountain Construction, or RMC. We know RMC today as one of the greatest roller coaster manufacturers in the industry. They became famous for changing old wood coasters and converting them into steel coasters, taking rides that for the most part had become uncomfortable and rough attractions and turning them into world-class thrill machines. This was what made them famous in the coaster world, but they were within the theme park industry for many years before this. RMC played a role in the construction of a lot of the major rides at Silverwood Theme Park, including Tremors and Timber Tear, in addition to the entire Boulder Beach water park. This relationship is partly due to the fact that Silverwood's factory and headquarters is located just a few minutes down the road in Hayden, Idaho. But in all of its time, Silverwood had never received a coaster from RMC, even though RMC provided a major retracking for Tremors from 2020 to 2025. Part of the reason for this for a while was that Silverwood did not have any good contenders for an RMC conversion. Both of their wooden coasters are solid and rides that they want to keep around for a long time. These two classics aren't going anywhere. By the way, if you want to watch the review for Timber Tear or Tremors, I'll link them down below. I've already made reviews for both of those roller coasters. In 2018, Rocky Mountain Construction debuted a new type of coaster, an extreme single rail. The first one to open was Wonder Woman Golden Lasso Coaster at Six Flags Fiesta, Texas, very shortly followed by Railblazer at California's Great America, these rides being pretty much identical outside of the fact that they have mirrored layouts. The idea with this ride type is that a smaller park could add a really high thrill coaster in a very small plot of land for a smaller price tag than what most major thrill coasters cost. Despite the big chains of Legacy Cedar Fair and Legacy Six Flags buying the first ones in 2018, Silverwood was the first non-chain park to receive a single rail. This is the type of park that this type of ride was really meant for. Now, Six Flags has gone back to the well to get a few of the larger models at Six Flags Magic Mountain and Six Flags Great Adventure. As far as we can tell, Stunt Pilot was not originally meant for Silverwood though. There were multiple other locations rumored to have bought it, and then ultimately those projects fell through, including Kentucky Kingdom. So all that to say, it was good to see Silverwood finally get a coaster from a company that they had worked with for so long. Now, why is this coaster themed to what it is? A big component of Silverwood's history revolves around air shows. At one point, the location that Silverwood stands on was known as the Henley Aerodome, and from 1988 to 1996, daily air shows were run at the park. This was a huge draw for Silverwood at the time. Unfortunately though, in 1996, after a fatal accident, these shows were permanently cancelled. Stunt Pilot draws on this theme, and it's supposed to emulate the feeling of being, well, a stunt pilot. To emphasize this theme, the ride has multiple near misses throughout. From an appearance standpoint, this coaster looks excellent. I love the white track with the red supports and the red trains. The whole thing really pops. And in a good way, it still feels very new, even though it's now 4 years old. I love Stunt Pilot's appearance and the idea of this coaster's theme, but unfortunately in the queue, it's not really much in terms of theming. After you pass under the great entrance sign to the left, you'll find that outside of some pictures and history bits hung on the wall at the beginning of the queue, it's pretty much a cattle pen going under the coaster's layout from there. It is pretty neat to see the coaster cycling right around you, and this is a similar dynamic to the other single rail coasters in the prototype model. That at least does make it a little bit better, and it gets you excited for your ride. A couple things operationally do play into how long this coaster's line is. The main one is Stunt Pilot running one or two trains? Typically, this coaster will start the day with just one train and add a second train a couple hours into the operating day. I'm not exactly sure why this is done for Stunt Pilot specifically. They always have very good staffing here. They do the same policy on Tremors. As you might imagine, it's a noticeable difference between when this coaster is running one train in comparison to when it's running two, especially because each train only holds 10 riders. One thing that's not an issue though is the dispatch times themselves. The crews here work very hard to get these trains pumped out at a good rate. This is partly helped by the fact that this coaster has a moving load station. That and the operators are just working hard and fast to get that train dispatched as quickly as possible. Even when this coaster is running two trains, it almost never stacks. In fact, you almost never even stop on the brake run. So when this coaster is running two trains, it actually has decent capacity. Because they don't usually start the day with 2 trains, it can actually be wise to ride this coaster later in the day. Also because it definitely warms up as the day goes along. We'll get into this, but Stunt Pilot is not nearly as fast as the other RMC Raptor coasters, but it's still very fast paced. But I think because of those 2 extra seats in each train, it takes a little longer to get going over the course of a day. Speaking of which, let's talk about those trains. So, Stunt Pilot has 2 extra seats than the original Raptor coasters, taking the original capacity from 8 riders per train to 10. We've mentioned capacity already, and throughput on this coaster is definitely superior than the other coasters because of those dispatch times and the additional seats, but they did have to reprofile some elements to get those trains through the layout safely. The biggest culprit of this, and the biggest area where it's actually an issue, is the dive loop. They had to design out the airtime on this element, and it's really the only element in my opinion that feels drastically different. And it's most noticeable in the front because you don't get that airtime like you do on the dive loop on the other Raptor coasters. Now, these trains are also a bit different than the original Raptors. Obviously, they're longer as we discussed, but they're different in some other ways as well. The vest-style shoulder restraints are a bit farther away from your neck. This I like, but I don't necessarily like how it feels to sit in these trains. Because of the way that these trains straddle the track, there's this raised bit in the middle that you have to put your legs to the side of, and then you kind of have to point your knees inward. It's not exactly a natural riding position. And it's not a deal breaker, but it can definitely be a little bit uncomfortable. This is just an issue with those newer generation Raptor trains. The original Raptors with the old trains don't have this issue. You can put your feet straight ahead. So where should you try to ride this coaster? I tend to believe that while every seat on this ride is fun, the back is still the best. Because of the aforementioned moving load station though, they typically load the train front to back, so if you want to get more of a back row ride, you can kind of let other parties go in front of you and see if you're able to make that work. I don't recall if they really took row requests or not, I don't think I actually asked. This coaster is plenty extreme in any row though. One cool thing about it is that it just has a 48-inch height requirement, so for a lot of kids, this is going to be one of their first true extreme roller coasters. Alright, so what does this ride experience actually feel like? Well, I think it's about time we get into it. Once secured, you'll ascend the lift hill. This pretty much just does the job. You'll go up 105 feet in the air. You do get nice views of the park around you though, and that continues when you reach the top of the lift hill and have a flat turn to the left. This is another small change from the original Raptors. The original Raptors had a dip here instead of a flat turn. Even though you lose some speed because of that, this first drop is pretty much just as good. You will go flying out of your seat no matter where you're sitting, in particular in those back couple of seats. It's truly just an awesome moment of straight, pure ejector airtime. There are 3 standout airtime moments on Stunt Pilot, and these airtime moments on all of these original Raptor coasters are just some of the best airtime moments on any coaster. Once again, in particular, if you're sitting in the back. If you're in the front, you'll get a little more hang over it, but you'll still come out of your seat. Next up is that aforementioned dive loop. Again, it doesn't have the airtime of the other Raptors, but it's still a really fun moment, and you really get whipped through the second half of it if you're sitting in the back. In the front, you twist quickly at the beginning of the element before kind of sliding your way down the second half of it. Nonetheless though, it's a solid first inversion, the first of 3 on Stunt Pilot. From here is another powerful airtime moment, the twisted airtime hill. Alan Schilke outdid himself with thinking of this one. You start by twisting up to the right, and then you twist down to the left as you're off axis throughout the whole hill. It seems to me that this hill is pretty much equally as good no matter where you're sitting in the train. Everyone is going to get shot out of their seat here. You then twist up to the right into an S-bend. This ride is not huge on positive G's. If you do feel any, you're going to feel them right here, but this is not a super forceful moment. It does keep its speed very well though, and you also pass through your first near miss of the ride. This one, to be honest, goes by so fast that it's actually pretty easy to miss. You then go through that S-bend and approach your second drop, this one being another straight drop, and while it's much smaller than the first one, this one is powerful as well. Another really good moment if you're in the back of the train. This is one of those moments that's definitely better if you're towards the back because you really get pulled down it. And this is the third and final outstanding airtime moment on Stunt Pilot. You also then pass through another near miss. Along with that, you have a hand chopper from above, so overall this is a good moment to take in those tight quarters that this coaster's layout takes place in. You twist to the right here now and go for your second inversion, which is a cutback. To be honest, this one goes by so fast that you almost don't even realize you're upside down. It's fun and fast paced, but otherwise not terribly noteworthy. Then you have the final inversion on Stunt Pilot, which is a corkscrew. This then immediately takes you into the best near miss of the ride by far. Right as you're done inverting, you fly through this barn and take a left-hand turn into the brakes. The turn isn't particularly forceful, but the corkscrew is definitely on the floatier side. For a ride that's so fast-paced, it's cool that there's a floaty moment here towards the end. One of the best things RMC does besides airtime is floaty inversions, whether it's a barrel roll, a 0G roll, or even a corkscrew here on these Raptors. And again, that near miss with the barn is great. So there you have it, that is the layout of Stunt Pilot. It's not a particularly long coaster as you might have gathered. In fact, it's only 1,800 feet long. And it also has less than a half minute of prime ride time. But all this coaster has is very good. The pacing is outstanding, and every element has a purpose. And if you love airtime, this is certainly a coaster that you can ride over and over and over again. In terms of smoothness, I'm happy to report that Stunt Pilot is still running extremely smooth. I've heard that some of the other Raptor coasters are getting a little bit shaky, specifically Wonder Woman down at Fiesta, Texas, but this one is still running glass smooth like it's brand new, which is great to see. So overall, what does Stunt Pilot deserve out of 10? I think I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. I wish this coaster was a little bit longer, and that's partly what's holding it back. Length is something I really value in a coaster, and when you have a thrill ride that just has so few elements, it's hard for it to compare to some of the longer ones in my opinion. But everything it has is really good. And despite that, I still think it edges out Tremors narrowly for the best coaster at Silverwood, and by extension, probably the best coaster in the Pacific Northwest. Now, let's answer the question, is it better than the original prototype Raptors? I must say I have not ridden Wonder Woman at Fiesta, Texas, so I cannot compare it to that, but I can compare it to Railblazer at CGA. These coasters are very similar, as their layouts are almost identical outside of some of those modifications that had to be made for the longer trains for Stunt Pilot. Let's give Stunt Pilot its flowers first. This coaster has better capacity, better operations, and better presentation. Of those, the operations is a big difference, but this isn't exactly the ride experience specifically, so we should kind of push that to the side. Now let's give Railblazer a turn. For Railblazer, this coaster has slightly better pacing and quicker maneuvers, partly because of those smaller trains. The airtime here is also slightly more powerful. Again, Stunt Pilot's is quite powerful, but Railblazer's is even more insane. Because it takes some of those elements quicker, it's also more intense. That upward helix can actually be a gray out moment at times. Because of the better pacing and slightly superior forces, I tend to prefer Railblazer at CGA, but both of these coasters are very good. So there you have it, Stunt Pilot at Silverwood Theme Park in Athol, Idaho. Do you think this is the best coaster at Silverwood, or do you prefer Tremors, or even Aftershock? Let me know down in the comment section below. And if you happen to find this video interesting, or even inspirational, probably not that one, I would appreciate it if you considered liking this video and subscribing to the channel. I appreciate you all, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.